with the Hall of Records and the Akashic Record. Next one, please. I'm going to start talking fast so you get to where you need to in time. Now, this is a messy diagram we haven't had time to fix yet, but if you take that structure of the Rushate, then there's another structure of cells that forms. These are spherical cells, small ones, bigger ones, they go all the way around, and like all the way out and beyond the size of the Rushate. These are referred to as the Rishate cluster. And these are not just energy structures. All energy is consciousness, and all consciousness is a form of energy. So what we're having here is literally we have our family right with us. Our spiritual body is a collective of consciousness that is us, that is ourself as we manifest. So we have portions as we grow and expand. You know how right now, if you look back and how much you knew about yourself when you were 2, right, and compare it to where you are now, you know a whole lot more about yourself and what you think and what you feel and what you like and what you don't like and what your life's about and what you want to do with yourself than you did at 2. Well, you can compare us the way we are here to the 2-year-old compared to who we are as the fulfillment of the spirit body. That fulfillment is already there. It is just a matter of turning on that consciousness in the physical body by bringing those frequencies in. It expands and de-densifies the matter form as you bring more of yourself in, and you become more and more spirit. But a Christed being is one who can hold that spirit in a transmuted matter form that has the capacity to shift angular rotation of particle spin to whatever time vector it points itself as. So the process of becoming Christed is about allowing these frequencies to progressively turn on in the matter structure and transmute and transfigure. It's called transfiguration. Transfigure the matter structure progressively into less dense states where it then reaches a mastery point where it can enter any density and have mastery of the space-time experience. So our system isn't a Christed system, but there are many of them around us. And one of the ones that are helping us, that are holding or assisting to hold the host that is here, because otherwise the ascension chambers would not be opened at all if it weren't for the fact that there is hosting going on. They're from a neighboring matrix. They're called it's called the Aquarian matrix, and that is a fully Christed matrix where they have gone through a full Adashi return cycle and come back out as literally manifest Christed beings, and their entire system, their entire Ekaveka system did that. So they are actually fall-proof because of that. Once you get to that point, and it's the first trip around that's rough. That if you're on your first trip out into manifestation, and you haven't made it yet through a starfire turnaround and a Adashi return, that is the one where falls tend to occur in. Once you get past that point and you actually get yourself through, then you carry the Christed status. And time doesn't mean much at that point because you can enter any time vector. They're all now. They actually all are perceived as happening here and now. And there is no past and future. There are just spaces to visit that have different time cycles associated with them. So you get past the point where you have to deal with fall systems and the whole misery and fear stuff that they are about. So you can look at falls really as a part of the natural evolution of consciousness, and sometimes energy ends up going back as space dust because it didn't make it through that cycle, but it doesn't stop it from going back. Anyway, we're back to the Rishate. This is called the Rishate, and this is like our collective Rishi consciousness, our Rishi self, our Gestalt Rishi self, and it is huge compared to the little matter form that we have here. There's a process by which each one of these things, there are these rings that are actually crystallizations of energy that form around them, and they are like versions of the Kusha crystals, or it would be the Akasha crystals on the Adore side. And in the process, there's also, that's not shown in here yet, it is shown but you can't really see it. This is where we actually experience the first set of 15 Jalizic rings, where we have spheres, because they're not just rings, they're spheres. And this later we will find in the center of what becomes the Taran. We'll also find it as the structure of the dark matter Partiki bodies. So the rasha bodies. So this is where it first appears. So you have 15 gelesic layers. You have these crystalline structures in between them at the 0.5, 3.5, 6.5, 9.5, and 15, 12.5, and 15.5 layers. These become important later, and we'll talk more about those tomorrow, when we see how activating certain portions of the frequencies of the core flows from each of the domains within your spirit body will progressively activate those crystalline structures, and they even correspond to the eyes, where you can start to see things in the eyes to kind of almost chart the growth of your spiritual body in relation to these activations. So we'll see some charts about that tomorrow. And this is where they first pop up, where the first kusha cells and their kasha cells on the other side, on the adore side. They also have something to do with the memory matrix that corresponds to I believe, the information that grows out from them. So in their way, each one of these serves as like an akashic or akashic record for the cell structure that grows out from it. All right. So this forms in the fourth trimester, or at the end of the fourth trimester, through the fourth trimester of the Siddha cycle. And then something else happens, which is what we've been trying to get to. I think it's there. Is it there? Yes, there she is. First, that whole structure of the Rishate, the Rishates, the Akushates, the Kusha, all of that, Eye of God pulls in, as does the Adore side. They all pull in the center and expand out. Now they come back, but they also birth this. This is called without an E, the Luma Eterna. Right. It is a still configuration. What you have here are, from the core flows, these are energy flow systems that run the core flows. You have a set, and this is where you get the birthing of the Allurian chambers, where, remember, down in the center of all this, you have your Akashic and Akushik record, the first cell, and you have the 8-cell cluster of the halls, and from those you have the core currents running out from the flows. Well, those core currents come out flow into 12 primary lines. Now, all of a sudden, what had 3 vectors, which means 6 event horizons, it now is actually a structure that has 12 lines going around it like a clock, 12 on the Adore and 12 on the Ettore, which means it is now a 6 vector plus 6 Ettore and 6 Adore vectors, which make 12 event horizons Ettore and 12 event horizons Adore. So each one of these is actually what later become called the fire chambers. But before you have fire chambers of the rasha bodies and of the light bodies, you have the Allurian chambers. And when Allurian chambers activate and fully open and turn on, they allow for the Ettore and the Adore sides of the bodies to come together. So this structure on the Luma Eterna structure on both sides would merge into one. And that would allow for, and in the first creation, the next thing that happens, you'll see a larger structure. But if that structure is already there, which it is, if your body is as big as it is now, and it is as far as the cosmos, to open the Luma Eterna, and the center of that is the Dali Luma, remember that little eye-shaped thing that was at the center of the Hare Krishna body? Well, in activating that, Dali Luma, it opens the doorway to the Luma Eterna. It allows for the Hall of Records to be turned on, the 8-cell cluster, and that allows for all these flows to open, and that allows for the Ettore and the Adore to merge, which allows for, on each of these vector lines, you're seeing the flows right now, but remember, each of those has one ball on one side, one on the other, and one in the center, and they phase, and each of those balls has all those little, the sets of 4s, the yugas and things in them. So this is a very large structure. But once they all open to each other, it opens the next set of flows. Now, in this sequence, we're just saying this was just born. Now, the next thing that is born is the full-on spirit body, which is called the Illumer Adana. And the Illumer Adana is even larger than this. So when you activate that and can get that open, the next thing, when it and its Adore side merge, it opens the flows of the whole spirit body, the Illumer Adana, which is that. And way at the center of it, you've got your Akashic and Akashic record, and you've got your halls of records, and you have the core layers of the Allurian chambers. Allurian because they connect directly into the eye of Allure that is inside of the Akashic and Akashic records. So it's a direct connection to the core flows, is what the Allurian chambers are. And these chambers, when they fully, when you activate the outer portions as well of the Allurian chambers, they allow these two, notice these are offset, right? Where if this is one vector here, these are offset. Its vector is this way. It allows them to align where you can pull the vector bodies in together into the center, into a full Hare Krishna state, and you could literally pop off and expand in order to complete a full Adashi cycle, not just the turnaround in Starfire, which is part of getting here, but at the end of a whole Adashi cycle, after you did Starfire, after you did Adashi 1, Adashi 2, Adashi 3, and you finally get back to that core spot, that's when you would be able to pull in, and all of those flows would open, and the entire thing would turn into a burst of light, and you would become what is called a spherical identity, a Christed spherical identity. That's like a sphere. You would become a son of God, and literally a son. And you could manifest yourself as anything you chose. And once you've got there, you can't fall anymore, right? Which is really nice. If you get that far, you can pretty well keep the shape you're in, change the shape you're in, whatever. You're beyond the fall space. And it all has to do with opening these flows, the core flows of the lavas that come outward to become the flows of, these are called the Navajo flows. And they have to do with something called the Navajo elemental command cell that forms in the Rasha body. And the Rasha body is what forms next. But at the center of this, as this is born, as the Illumeradana is born, at the center of this, a little thing called the Taran forms, the first light seed. And that is what starts the starborn cycle. And we were taught starborn cycle before we were taught spirit body cycle, possibly because the drawings weren't as hard. Right? If Az hadn't done these on the computer, they would have been hopeless. Just to get the technical accuracy of the repeating pattern like that, to do that by hand, it wouldn't have been pretty. So we have Az to thank for figuring out. You did it in CAD, didn't you? Yeah, he had to use CAD for that one. That's the one, the more architectural-oriented program. And he taught himself CAD so he could do these. He's teaching himself how to do this stuff so the graphs look better. But anyway, this, when we talk about the spirit body, you have a spirit body. It is an Illuminaradana. It connects you to the spirit body of the planet, and that's connected to the spirit body of the sun, and that's connected to the spirit body of the entire solar system, which is connected to the galaxy, which is connected to the universe. And it's like the hip bone's connected to the what bone? Yeah. So we are all embedded within the cosmos, within the cosmic body. There is no place to fall to. You just fall where you are, and eventually get taken home back to center anyway. So one of the most beautiful things I find about this paradigm of understanding is that it shows us our relationship to God's source. It's not one of these vague concepts out there anymore. There is structure to the cosmos. There is a form, a shape. It was created by design and for purpose. It was created by a loving creator that is eternal. And it is a consciousness field to which we all belong and of which we are all a part. We can choose to be a part of it consciously, or we can ignore that fact, but it doesn't change it, that it's a fact. And compared to the other belief systems that are partial belief systems that are left out here, be it science or religion, this is the most beautiful understanding of self, as far as having distorted image of self goes. What is distorted is thinking you evolved out of an ape when you didn't, is thinking that God is some male sitting up there that's ready to throw you in hell if you do something wrong. Those are distorted ideas that give you a distorted understanding of your relationship to God and to God's source. And take what's good in those ideologies, but ignore the rest, seriously, and look higher. That's the one thing that I have not seen a paradigm out here do, not even during the Atlantean period, because it was still pretty rough even then, because I have a lot of cellular memory open from then. But the full story of the never-ending story of the eternal life creation, it is the most beautiful story there is. That's why, if nothing else is proof that I make this stuff up, how could I make this stuff up? I can barely keep up with this stuff and understanding it and remembering what the words are and how what goes where and all of that. It is the most beautiful paradigm, and it is the eternal life paradigm. And of this, it is meant to, putting it in a form that is available outside, an objectification, is really just meant to help us remind ourselves of what knowledge we actually carry within us. We would know all of this. We wouldn't need books to explain it if our DNA wasn't damaged and shutting out portions of our natural consciousness and identity. And what we are doing is getting the reminders back so we can bring those frequencies back through, so we can fix that mutation and bring the natural structure back into ourselves, and ourselves back into the natural structure of spirit. Next one, please. 1 hour. Okay. 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 Time to start talking quickly, isn't it? Okay. Let me see. This was talking a bit more about how the vector, you could call it a vector body, which is one set, right, of the Hare Krishna, the Maharisha, and the Hare Krishna body in the center, and all of the little balls that it implies that aren't drawn on here. This section, I think I may actually just all right. I was just going to say I will put that with the part I'm discussing tomorrow. But they said go through it once, and then we can come back with the personal level of it tomorrow. But it's just to show you again how one vector is structured. We've seen the three-body structure. Remember that there are 6 vectors of this on each Adori and Atori side now, which means 12 points, and that's where we get our Illyrian chambers. They are the chambers that run through the center core. Now, next one, please. This one will show. This is where they wanted us to see, in that vector, how those, the flows, the Navajo flows, fit. The Navajo flows take the currents out from the center and run them through the core, the center Illyrian chamber line, or the vector chamber line, and they bring them up through into the Navajo configuration. These are what become the elemental currents that eventually become the things like hydrogen and helium, and the things that are identified elements on the periodic table. And this is just one set of them, one set of the Hara bodies, the 3 Hara bodies, and 2 of the flows. There's also a double flow in the center. So you'd have like 2 Cathara grids this way, one with a flow going this way, and one with it going that way. And that these 2 would pull into that center set of flows when you brought the 2 vector bodies together, and that would put you into the Hare Krishna state, and that is the state that opens the Dalai Lama doorway at the center that allows for activation of the Illyrian chamber layers that go with the Luma Eterna, and that eventually allows for activation of the layers that go with the Illumer Adana body. So it is a bit of a process, but it is quite a beautiful process. Next one, please. We'll talk more probably about these tomorrow and that kind of stuff. And they wanted us to, let's not forget that with those flows, there are these, right? These are the yuga bodies that are, have to do with that. And the point of turnaround where they start to come back in and go into opposite spin to form the Adashi cycles. This is where we are moving into now. In, 2047, 2047 to 2051, Eartha, which is our host star that is actually hosting the local host of Earth, is entering this point of starfire where it turns around in between 2047 and 2051. And there are things that Earth needs to do and be able to go through before that period if it's going to handle that. well, because Earth itself cannot starfire because there is too much grid damage. A portion of it, thanks to the host of the Aquiferian shield here, will be able to move through into a slower evolution where it won't starfire when Eartha does, but it won't either fall or go into pole reversal when Eartha does its natural starfire. So they're larger things we'll talk about tomorrow, more so. But they wanted us to be reminded of the structure of the bodies, the yuga bodies, and actually they're pointing it down this way this time. They're having the Ittori side this way. They're trying to show that the Ittori side isn't always pointing there, right? Ittori can be pointing out here also. Because what this builds up to be is when you start to look at the set of them, you will actually end up with, on each of those 12 marks of the clock, each of those 12 Illyrian chambers, you will have one Ittori body, and behind it, on the behind vector, you will have its spirit body part, and you will have, going around the other way, a manifest Adore body with its spiritual part going behind it, which means these actually end up with, say if this is Ittori, you have the Ittori manifest, the Ittori spirit on the Adore side. Then you'd have the Adore manifest and the Ittori spirit here. And those are the parts. The spirit of Adore is our Iridanus. All right? The spirit of Ittori, our spirit, is the Adore's Iridanus. So the Iridanus energies are the first, what we're called the Iridanus energies, are the first step in bringing the, what are called the adjugate twins, the Adore and the Ittori manifest, together in the center into this state. So we're in the process of beginning that process. Next one, please. If you look at them together, it kind of looks like that. This is showing, let's see, 6 Satori Iridanus vector bodies and 12 event horizons and the Adore Iridanus body. Right, that's why it's actually saying in a more complicated way what I just explained about the Iridanus here would be the Adore spirit frequencies, all right, in our Ittori body. So let's say these are 6 vectors of the Ittori bodies, and these would be the spirit bodies in the Adore side. So let's say that side is the Adore side, and this side is the Ittori side. Next one, please. It's a faster way to do this, so I'm going to do it this way. Now, if you're going to look at the manifest side of the Adore, these would be the manifest Adore, and these would be the spirit of Adore. Remember, that's where the Ittori manifest side is. So the spirit of Adore is running through the manifest of Ittori and vice versa. And each one of these is one of those Harabadi phase sets. And they're all linked at the center by the Akashic and the Kushik record and the Hall of Records sets. And the rest of the structures that emerge from that. This gives the format for the light body to form. So when the light body forms, it forms within this structure. And from the light body forms the matter body. Next one, please. Now here's where we get into a concept that is called adjugate twins. We've talked about adjugate twins being, if you're in Ittori, it implies what's behind you in the Adore side on that vector would be your adjugate. Okay, so it's cross vector twins, right, where you have a counterpart on the other side. Not just you or universe, but every atom has something, it has an adjugate twin. For example, and I'll show you how this goes a little bit. An adjugate twin, if you are in manifest Ittori vector 1, right? Say here, just number them like a clock, right? Going around clockwise. Manifest Ittori vector 1. If you follow that across, your adjugate twin would be in 7, vector 7. If you were in vector 12, your adjugate twin would be the manifest Adore one in vector 6. And is literally bringing, these are time vectors. These are literally event horizons and reality domes that reality and manifestation takes place in. And when you bring them together, it takes you into that central structure. So with the fact that we've just got the Hall of Records open on Earth to a sufficient degree to hold the host, This is exciting because it's telling you something about what portions of the planetary body at least will be able to begin running and opening, where a part of them can be drawn into slide, which is a lot better prognosis than we've had for quite a while with the escalation of this drama. On a personal level, it means the same thing. We'll be able to heal the mutation within our DNA much faster and get back on our natural path of ascension. So this is just showing you the adjugate twin relationships, the 1 and the 7, the 2 and the 8, the 3 and the 9, the 4 and the 10, the 5 and the 11, the 6 and the 12. They are the vector twins running across. And there are, each one of those those lines is an Illyrian chamber. All right, so there are technically 12 Illyrian chambers. There's really 6 of them, but they each carry a different set of frequencies. So you have an Illyrian chamber that is the chamber for, say, number 11, and that connects to the chamber that is for 5, and those kind of things. So it's a process of activating the Illyrian chambers. The Illyrian chambers have a natural function. They actually, with the phasing of these vectors, because remember, each of these also has the little sets of balls inside, and they phase. And at certain points, they phase and spark, and they make currents that become the sparks that form the quarks that end up forming the matter when it gets through the Rasha body stage and out into the light body and matter stage. There's still a Rasha body that forms once we get past this. This is still spirit body structure. This is still what happens at that point where the Illumeridana is born. All of these are part of the Illumeridana structure. Next one, please. That's looking at it, same thing, with all of its little balls, right? All of its little yuga bodies and such, right? So it's just showing you, this is really large. And if you realize each one of those little yuga bodies has a structure like this within it, and each one of the structures like this within it has another set of smaller ones in it. The cosmos is huge. We are this little tiny area in the cosmos, but what's nice to know is, in the cosmic body, everything identifiable, even by the Hubble spacecraft, is somewhere in that map, because that is the map of the cosmic body. And we have micro versions of it as the maps of our own body. We have identities of self in each of these spaces, portions of our identity. We have simultaneous incarnations. We teach reincarnation, but not with an R. We teach simultaneous incarnations. You have multiple selves expressing simultaneously in this living matrix that exists now. You appear to be separated by space and time because of the difference in angular rotation of particle spin and relationship between the electromagnetic domains within which each portion of your consciousness is focused. When you get back to the understanding of the consciousness of the center, you realize that linear time passage is actually an illusion that is created through these structures. And you can sit in the middle of the entire structure and feel the cosmos now. And it takes you into a whole different level of cognition that literally is beyond what linear thought alone can do and what words can't even touch. So there are huge things to look forward to as you turn on these currents and all of those kind of things while you're still in linear time. But eventually, the time does feel like an illusion when you get into those spaces. It's understood. Its mechanics are completely understood once you're in the Christed level. And you understand that there is no thing but now. And that is kind of like, yeah, but there's beginnings and endings and that kind of stuff. There's perpetual motion from a single point of focus and creation, of source. And there is a structure that point has formed and is formed and continually reforms. So you have time, sort of, but it's different than walking through a hologram, moving forward. It is time that you can step sideways in. You can make 3 of yourself at one time in one space, location. You can do all sorts of things when you begin to be an Adashi master, which is also a time master. And they don't like the words masters because that word is abused here with ascendant masters who aren't, and that kind of thing. And they also really, really don't like the term of like Time Lords and that kind of stuff because they find it just really tacky. And so, right? So there are a lot of teachings out there that, they're ascendant masters this or that, and they're Time Lords this or that, or the solar lords, or Lord this, Lord that, whatever, good Lord. You don't need the Lord word, because Lord, what does Lord imply? Where might that word have come from? Think about kings and queens, and lords and masters, and puppets. God's source, if you need to call God's source Lord, if it makes you feel better, that's okay, but it is not required. You are not considered subservient. You are considered. Source considers every one of its creations equal unto itself in value, even though energetically you might be much, much tinier. And you might not be able to understand or hold as much knowledge in your much tinier form. You are still of equal value. And you will find with any true ascended beings, they do not want the bow down, kiss my toes thing. They do not do the kiss my ring that you get with some of the other belief systems that are telling you, oh, we're so much better than you. And we come and we speak to you as speakers, and we say, we are learning this together or relearning it together. We don't pull an authority trip over you. We have one authority that has been given to us that isn't really an authority, it's a responsibility to protect the integrity of this work. Which means if people come and they try to add stuff to it and we say no and they get ticked off at us and call us names, well, that happens sometimes. It doesn't mean we're trying to pull rank. It means we have an obligation to take care of the work and make sure nobody distorts it so other people can read distorted stuff. We've had those issues. We've been called elitist and that kind of stuff. We are not elitist. There's nothing elitist about what we teach. In fact, you don't find anything that teaches more egalitarian. What we do, however, say is there are rules by which the universe is created and structured. And when you work with those rules cooperatively, you end up with a Christic, harmonious, loving state of experience in your hologram. But if you say it's a free-for-all and there are no rules, which is one of the lines the fallen angelics really, really like to entice people into, oh, do what you want. You know, you can do anything you want. Yeah, you can. You have free will. But they don't bother telling you about the consequences. And there are consequences. And it doesn't mean God's going to come down and smack you. It means you're going to smack yourself. With the energy return you get back. What you give out, you will get back. One way or the other. Try to make it nice. Anyway, this is the structure we all live in. Next one. Oh, more of these. This is why it's the never-ending story. Not even the Rajabadi yet. Oh, God. Okay, is there anything here? Oh, yes, this one. I'm glad we did get to this one. This is why I kept it in, I think. Just so you have an idea of those simultaneous incarnations of self. Now, notice this is one vector line, right? The fact that you exist in creation would imply you have one in a set of these on all of those vector lines, right? You've got, on the outer domains, 20,736 cells. On the middle domains, you have 1,728 cells. On the inner domains, they're in the middle, in the inner you have 144 cells. And in the core domains, you have 12. And of course, they have their counterparts going out the Adore side. Boy, was it an understatement when they said we have a minimum of 1,728 cells running around out there. Right. So this happens to be the disbursement pattern of identity when God's source makes a part of its own consciousness small enough to fit into a manifestation framework, right, within its own large consciousness field. So we have all these parts of ourselves that are simultaneously, right at this time, focused in different space-time locations. You might start getting memories of running around in Victorian clothes and really feel like you have an incarnation or you were somebody back then. Don't make the mistake of you were somebody. Okay? You are you right here and now. You have another part of yourself as that person there. The whole karmic stuff in the way it was taught in reincarnation was another distortion on the Atlantean texts. It doesn't work that way. I mean, there's whole religions in India that are based on people really being stuck and being treated like untouchables and those kind of things because of whatever they birthed into because of whatever they were in their last life. Yes, you did have a last life, which would be the one that's happening right now too, but a step in vibration that's not quite as high, or a step in oscillation actually, it's not quite as high as yours in time right now. All of the time is actually happening at once in a structure that exists at once. And that's hard to wrap your mind around that when you first encounter that. But the fact is, you didn't die as that person and then become this person. But there is a portion of the consciousness that will move through, say, a death experience. None of them were meant to die. Technically, you're all supposed to pull back up into the center to become your whole self again, and then take on the body form, spherical identity of the whole Christ itself. But when bodies die here, a portion of the self is actually left in the larger planetary body in the time frame that was dead. And there's a process that once you get to certain levels of moving into Adashi Starfire, that they will assist you and teach you on how to pull out the parts of yourself that got bodies stuck, that are now like dust stuck in the planet, in a planet someplace. There, you need to reclaim that energy with your signature on it to get all the way through a full Adashi ascension. So there's a lot to some of these things that have to do with very real things. For instance, burial. Now, burial is not something that the Christians taught because it makes sure your body is stuck in the earth. The fastest way, if you can't take your body with you by naturally turning it to vapor and then turning it back into solid when you get to where you're going next, the next best thing is cremation, because it releases at least the body form from the planetary field into a lighter state that can be more easily drawn through the core gate in the planet, or the prana seed, and pulled out with you so you can reassemble it. When bodies being buried was not taught by Christic races. They were taught by others who had a vested interest in keeping certain gene codes available, and then also in keeping certain portions of consciousness trapped. So we have been lied to a lot since Atlantis. Some of our most precious and sacred rituals have been twisted to do the opposite of what the true sacred ritual is meant to do. And it doesn't mean that if you've buried somebody, like a relative or something, that they're doomed. No, fortunately, there are real masters, Christic masters, that know how to assist people in getting the part of their spirit, their iridanus part, that is still stuck in there, how to get that out into what is called a proper bardo. Now, a proper bardo would occur much more easily if the physical body wasn't there. There will be a part of that physical body that will go to dust on the planet, and it will wait until the planet cycles. And that means the identity trying to go through a starfire will lose bits of quantum of its own thrust, which may affect its ability. It depends on how many bodies it lost. It will affect its ability to do an Adashi turnaround. So there's a whole set of things. There were once upon a time the real teachings that were here that told us the natural rituals of what supported Christic evolution. And it was not an accident that they were taken away. We didn't just happen to forget them. And that is one of the hardest things that we've had to face in dealing with this paradigm. It's the most beautiful relationship to God and to Spirit that anything out there teaches you. But it also has a responsibility of awareness of, if that's the way it is, then how can it be like it is out here on the planet? Obviously something happened, so they had told us what happened as well. But it comes back to, we have this structure, we are part of this structure, and we have the ability to begin healing ourselves and doing it right from here, as far as making the changes, first in self-concept. Are you going to be a finite, limited being that dies? Or are you aiming for becoming your whole self, which is an eternal life being? You can give it a good shot. We have a heck of a shot of reverse mutating enough of the DNA to get back at least some of this potential. And if we get some of it back, we can at least slide out to a place where they can help us get the rest of it back. So anyway, next one. Let's see. Anything more I have to see here? Right. Right. What does that say? I can't read my writing on some of these. This is basically trying to show you the layers of the cells. If this is, let's see, that's really important. Okay. Wait a minute. Let me see. I'm trying to remember what this one goes with. This goes with another set, actually. I'm going to wait on this one. This goes with another set. Yeah. Can you put that one aside for me, honey, please? Yeah, because that goes with a different set that I'll probably be using tomorrow. Anyway, back to the Taran. The Taran is the little light seed that, when the Illumeridana, big thing, births, the Taran little light seed in the center births. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was. Yes, we're working on trying to translate the whole first bits. God did this, God did that, then He made light. Right? We're trying to show where certain things were described very simply that do correspond directly to the things that we are seeing as far as how creation really is set in motion perpetually. But this is the point where there was light and there was. Right? The first light seed is the Taran. We've covered this material pretty extensively, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on it, but I do want you to see the people especially who have not seen some of this. I want you to see where this fits in the sequence. We're working our way up. We've got our spirit body, cosmic spirit body has been born now. And now at the final point where the big spirit body is birthed, this births the center of it. And this starts what is called the star-born cycle. But there is a space here, and this is where they had taught us about the star-born cycle first. Before the star-born cycle, we have the Taran that starts to do something. It starts what are called harmonic key cycles that are actually called tachyon cycles. But at the same time, it births what is called the Rasha body, the core Rasha body. If we look at the spirit body, the Lumeridana, as the first core seed atom, after a seed atom forms, the next stage is the formation of the Rasha dark matter body. The Rasha dark matter body and its structure connects the Adore and the Ettore sides through the core Illyrian chambers and all of the things that the Illyrian chambers are connected to. So we have the Taran that birthed out with the Lumeridana. The Taran contracts, and when it contracts, its little gelesic balls rub together, and it makes sparks, and it builds quantum sparks. And this is where we're moving up toward where sparks make quarks type of thing, where matter starts to be born. But in the center of the Taran, there's something called the partiki. Yeah, partiki. The partiki, and the partiki, I don't have that one here, has what are called 15 gelesic layers. Now, before we get into full star-born cycle, what did I have? Did I do Rasha yet, or did I go into keys yet? Can we put the next one on, please? Yeah. Okay. Now, I'll describe very briefly. There is a process of harmonic keys creation where that structure, which is a small thing at the center of the large spirit body, where it contracts, and when it contracts, its three outer balls, called the three ina, rub through the center structure, which is a partiki that has 15 gelesic layers. And when those three balls rub through the center, they make sets of sparks. And each set of sparks, and on one contraction, a set of sparks will fill the first of the 15 gelesic rings. And then it'll contract again, and then the sparks from the second contraction and rubbing together will fill the second gelesic ring, all the way out until 12 of the gelesic rings inside that center ball, that is not shown here, the rings aren't shown here, will fill with sparks, and those sparks become what are called harmonic keys. The sparks come together in groups of 12 to form harmonic keys. There will be a set of 12 harmonic keys. There's a whole procedure that is referred to as tachyon cycles. We've been covering that since Tenerife in 2006, I believe that wasn't it? February? Yeah. So there is information for people who are new on that would be found in the 2006 workshops, because we have covered a lot of the harmonic key cycling extensively, and it does take quite a while to go through the series of diagrams with it. What's most important is you seeing structure. So for now, the structure, first you would see the Taran and its three ina, and the center one is often referred to the Ka, right? Because the outer bands of it are Ka, what are called the Ka light field. So you have this structure makes the keys, and this is where we get the keys of Enoch, right? This is the Enoch, right? The stuff that has been translated into the keys of Enoch information and those kind of things was a version of this information, and not the original version either. But all of those things, we have the keys of Enoch and the keys of Enoch, which means no Ka light field, right, that has to do with the mutation that is on the planet. We teach the keys, harmonic keys of Ina Ka, the three Ina, which are the encryption sounds of these, all right, these three outer spheres of the Taran. And then we have the center one, which is the Partiki. And we're going to go from here to what actually happens next. Where usually we go from the Taran into the structure of the what is called the inner light body. First, we're going to do the Rasha, and they taught Rasha afterwards, so we're seeing the sequence that it actually unfolds in for the first time. After the seed, what you could call the spirit seed atom, which is the Illumiradana, huge body, is born with the Taran at its center. Then there are a series of things that occur that create what is called the Rasha body. First, there's another one before that. There should be one before. I might have got the two transposed. See what the next one is. I think. Yeah, this was the first one. Okay. First, we've got what are called 6 cracks, 6 pops, and on the next page is the bing, bong, boom, or whatever it is. All this stuff is the stuff before the Big Bang. And this also applies on the cosmic level. Right? These are where the dark matter templates form before the light matter or the observable matter in the universe is created. And these will lead up to the Big Bang point. This also happens in small ways in your personal body, as far as how there's certain points in the evolution of fetuses and baby bodies that all this stuff is happening. And so we'll look at that when we look at the personal level tomorrow. But what happens next are 6 cracks where there are 6 levels of replication that occur. Now, the Taran makes its sparks. It begins its cycling, and there are 6 levels of replication of the small wait a minute, they're showing me something. Let me see. We're in the Lumiradana. Where? What part is replicating? Right. Okay. All right, they're showing me something new because they just linked this in this way. So this one's new to me too. I know how this works, but how does it connect to the Lumiradana? Application. Okay. All right. They said, all right, describe it like this for now, which means there'll be more information on that one later on that question. What is replicating, what quantum is replicating at this point is the Partiki in the center of the Taran and part of the Luma Eterna, or remember the Luma Eterna inner part of the Illumiradana body. Part of that quantum is replicating. And what happens first is there is 6 cracks where there's a boom, 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 boom. 6 replications of the center cell. And that creates the first Jaleesic layers and they have specific encryptions. One, the first layer, the little one at the center that you can't even see, the one that would be in here, right? That would be the Nada. The next 2 would be the Adama. 3 is the Jaffa. 4 is the Tau. 5 is the Ida. 6 is the Jada. Right? These form the 6 inner Jaleesic radiation layers. Then there is the next thing. Oh, and these expand, by the way, as far as rates of expansion. You know how we did the spiral expansion before, where the rotational expansion as far as proportions of things to each other? There are specific proportions to this. These expand this way. It's the embedded expansion where the math is a little bit different. Same type of base 12 Criss code grid, but instead of doing when you'd have the spiral expansion, you'd have the 12 point of the smaller one would sit inside the 9 point of the next one up, right? And that's how you would form that expansion. This one is different. If you take one Cathara grid, this point here on a Cathara grid, this line on the top, is referred to as the Rajna line because there's something called the Rajna lock there, and we teach that in the Cathara program. And down here you have the Iyumbi line. Well, if you run the one smaller inside from top to top, it gives you a little bit different mathematical relationship, but it gives you, and it's in that mathematical relationship that you start to get the proper relationships between the gelesic layers. So if you're going to work with this material, it is about not just showing a few circles together. Those few circles have certain quantum in relation to each other, which means they have certain size and placement in relation to each other. So this is an embedded expansion, where it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It stays on the same axis and expands out that way. So you have the 6 cracks that form the 6 inner gelesic layers. Next one, please, down here. Not next one yet, but yeah, down here. Then you have what's called the 6 pops, or pillars of power, where there is another set of these phase cells form, but this time on the dark matter template layer. All right? And the 6 pops, that's pillars of POPs, or for pillars of power, where there's phase cells that form out. Now, if you have that is at the center, right? See where that whole big set that's big up there? If you shrink it down and make it this, that's where it is, right there. So those 6 layers are here, and the way the proportions of this work, that would be here. And then the next 6 layers are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pops. And that's actually, they go 1, and then 2 is a little bit smaller quantum, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they come in that way. All right, so you have the 6 from the inner and then the 6 outer ones. What that forms so far are 12 gelesic layers. And then there's one more thing that happens. Next one, please. Then we have the bing, the bong, and the boom. No bang yet. When you put them all together, you got the little bang. And the next is another set of expansions where it goes bing, makes layer 13, then comes back and replicates again, layer 14 and layer 15. And that is where you get a 15 gelesic layer template. That is the Partiki, it's called the Partiki body template, or the Rasha body for short. Now, Rasha is the name of the first one that goes with the core domain. Each of the domains have a Rasha body. The core domain is Rasha body. The inner domain is the Rasha La body. The middle domain is the Rasha Li body. And the outer domain is the Rasha Lay body. So when we do Rasha Lay body training, it was about activating the outer domain level of this. We've gone way beyond just that at this point as far as what is being activated in the fields and in the shields, because of the escalation of the drama. But this is where all of those things, the Rasha, come from. So we had the spirit body being born, and then that gave birth to the light seed. And then the light seed begins its phasing cycle as the Rasha body is being born. And while during this process that has to do with what's called the gestation cycle of the gestation cycle of the light body, right? You have the Taran doing its phasing, its first tachyon cycle, which is its first set of 12 harmonic key cycles, as the Rasha body is building. Now, what happens next is called the Big Bang. And this is where the externalization of the frequency, the next sets of replications, create the outer light body simultaneously with the rest of the inner light body. The inner light body is what we refer to as the starborn cycle that went from the Taran all the way up through, I'll show you in a minute, all the way up through into the birth of the next seed atom, which is the Unisci, which is the seed atom that goes with the inner domain, right? So that is happening, but at the same time, the outer light body is also being born. So the Rasha is born following the birth of the seed atom, which was the spirit body in the core cycle. You have the seed atom being born, then you have the Rasha being born, and the Taran doing its first tachyon cycle, the Taran cycle. And then at that point, they all pull into source at the flash point of the Taran cycle, and they birth back out into the Big Bang, and on that Big Bang, next is birthed out what is called the dyad, as the inner light, and which it takes the Taran, which had 3 particuli, a power of 3 particuli, it takes that and doubles it, so the dyad is actually a power of 6 particuli, but at the same time, it gives birth to the Eucatharista body, which are, this is where the big body of the Ekamaps are the God World Gates. So it first births that. And then as we go through the star-born cycle, corresponding layers of the outer level, Big Bang level, of the outer light body, the Yucatharista body, are forming. So that is what we saw and talked about a little bit at the beginning when I showed you how they plugged all that into that first cycle that had all the little 3.75 notches all the way around the circle showing parts of the cycle. But this is how the Rasha body forms. The Rasha body is important, and I want to get through some of this because I've got to get you to the maps because I want you to see where the Adashi temples are, and you need to understand where this is, how this works a bit, in order to understand the significance of the Adashi temples and where they are in relation to Earth. Anyway, this is where you get the template for the Partiki dark matter template, aka Rasha body. Next one, please. That whole structure pulls in and pops back out and replicates. And it forms not just the template, but the Rasha body itself, the Partiki body. The Partiki body, now, this is forming within the structure of the large Lumeradana spirit body. That actually define the boundaries of the size this will be is defined by the spirit body that grew before it. So the Rasha body is now growing within that structure of the spirit body. And what it has, it's like a reflection of the spirit body, but it's still the dark matter templates, it has its sets of phase cells, just like the Yuga bodies, right? And it has what are called fire chambers, which are the Rasha layer of the Illyrian chambers. Now, the Illyrian chambers would be the spirit body, next level deeper, the spirit body layer, and the fire chambers of the Rasha body run on the Illyrian chambers. They take the core flows from the Illyrian chambers of the spirit body and begin the translation of those into what becomes outer light. But at this stage, the fire chambers are taking the Illyrian flows and bringing them in to form the core sparks of which what become elements out here, like on the periodic table type elements out here. So the fire chambers of the Partiki body, or dark matter template body, take those core flows and begin the process of making them into the matter flow, what become matter flows out here. At the center of the Partiki body, there is something very important that is also birthed out. It's not shown here yet. What we're showing are the proportional relationships of the 15 Jaleesic layers coming all the way out to 15 out here. At the center is something called the prana seed births. Prana is a specific type of energy that forms by, let's go into that part tomorrow or I'll never get to where I need to with this one. Prana is a specific type of energy, just like is mana and ire and mane. And we can talk a little bit about that more tomorrow. But prana is essential. There are two types of prana, prana ki and prana chi. Prana ki with a K, K-E-I, has positive charge, and prana chi has a negative charge. And you put them together and you get a full prana. And a full prana has a very specific quantum, and it's an essential part of the natural flow of energy and consciousness between the core flows and the outer flows of the light body structure. So the prana seed forms at the center of the Rasha body, the first Rasha body. Next one, please. Also with the Rasha body, oh, and by the way, with the Rasha body, these Jaleesic rings that are called rings in the Partiki, the little one inside the tarn, these are called bands in the larger Partiki body structure. And these are crystalline Jaleesic rings in between them. These are called spans, and they were called bands in the smaller version that occurs at the center of the tarn. And so we have the spans that are the crystalline Jaleesic rings in between every one of them. And we have, see, I'm twisting the words. I haven't done this one in a while. The rings, we refer to the rings as the spaces in between the lines. The lines on here are the spans. That's an easy way to put it, okay? Let's try different words completely. But what we're referring to is the spans and the rings when it comes to the Partiki dark matter templates, or the Rasha bodies. An activation of the rings and the spans allows for the phasing of what are called the Alans, Shalans, and Kalans crystal sets within the fire chambers that allows for progressive quantum building, that allows for the process of prana exchange to occur which allows for certain cycles called Navajo cycles, in which the partiki for the next creation cycle that's due, like if you're in the inner domain, it would be the creation cycle for the middle domain, would be created during the Navajo cycle of the phasing of the lans, as they call it, the Elans, Shalans, and Kalans, which are these crystal rings of the partiki body, the phasing of them in their fire chambers. So the process of prana exchange has to do with the lans phasing, making sparks in the fire chambers, making a communication of currents through the center point back into the Illyrian chambers and back into the spirit body. So it's making the connection between the spirit body and the dark matter template. And at certain points, once it is grown, because the next thing that is actually forming with this is the light body structure, where it allows the flows from the outer light body structure of the Yukatharista body structures through the inner light body structures of like the Taran and the Mayad and the Dyad, the Monad, through the Rasha body structures and into the spirit body structure, where you have at its center the Akashic record and the halls of records. So these are the deep core flows, and this is the process by which we're moving outward now. We've birthed the spirit body, we've birthed the Rasha body. So understanding the 15 Jalisic layers becomes important, because in this process, this is how we will start to understand how the planes intersect, the planes that run through the planetary grids and literally run through the atmosphere and down through into the core. They're not just on a planet. All solar systems are structured this way. And there's specific placements that planets are supposed to be in. I think we might get a chance to look at some of that new stuff tomorrow, because they're just giving it to me. So this is a key to everything. They're the dark matter templates. And the light body templates, what are called the base shields of the light body, or the outer light body. You've got the as if 15 layers weren't bad enough to keep track of. This does a 4 times expansion of embeddeds. So you have 15 and 15 and 15 and 15. And that's the natural structure just for one thing manifesting. And that's before you have the full light body around it. So this is taking place. The formation of the Rasha body is taking place right when the Taran is born. That's when this started, the Taran and the full spirit body, Lumeridana. That is when the Taran is going through its first cycle. That is when the dark matter template is born, and the Big Bang finally occurs, where the light body starts to birth, and the outer light body as well, at the point where the first tachyon cycle, the Taran cycle, is completed, or harmonic key cycle. So when I say tachyons, then people just know that I'm referring to a tachyon is a group of 12 harmonic keys, Jalisic radiation keys, and keys are groups of 12 sparks, Jalisic radiation sparks, that are formed in the Taran, with the Taran expanding and contracting that we talked about a little bit before. So we are at the formation and the structure of the Rasha body. See the next one, please. How many? 30? Okay. Yeah. Needless to say, we have 30 minutes to journey. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time reading all of this right now. What is most important to understand is there are certain natural cycles when the Rasha body is supposed to activate and go through a Navajo cycle. And a Navajo cycle has to do with something called the Navajo cell, which is the elemental command cell. It is part of the dark matter templates, and it is what actually generates the currents that become the light body currents as they move out. And when we do elemental commands, so the 12 tribes classes, the smaller ones, are about that. We do shields, and we work directly with running the frequencies specifically of elemental command and working cooperatively with the consciousness that is the consciousness of the elements that are here. Because even elements are conscious. They're families of consciousness. So it all starts here with the Rasha body templates. And the Rasha bodies, again, are the dark matter templates. At the center is the prana seed. The prana seed, this is just a close-up of it, looks like that. Has prana chi and prana ki and what is called ira, this type of frequency. And these phase together, just like a partiki phase set or a partiki phase set would, and they make sparks. When you put prana chi and prana ki together, they make a full prana spark, and that opens the creation point door. And there are progressive cycles of building building sparks of expansion and contraction of, here they call it breathing. We went through whole cycles of the Navajo breathing that begin activation of each of the rings, sparking and activation of each of the rings, to the point where all of these come together. This is called an Elan crystal band. The Elan crystal band holds what are called prana jewels. This is where your jewels are stored. And these are the Shalan crystal bands that are considered the base tone crystals, and they hold the Ire type of energy. And these are the Kalan crystals that hold the mana type of energy. And when they come together, they bring those types of energies together, build sparks, progressively charge the rings and the spans. And at a certain point, there's these other lons out here. They're called orons, oron crystals, all the way out at the 15.5 span. And when enough frequency and charge is built up, the orons fire. And that allows for literally the entire dark matter template, or the Rasha body, to turn into light and pull into the spirit body. And when it pulls into the spirit body, it takes the light body structure and the matter body structure that is outside of it and pulls it in to the Rasha state, which is a state of less dense matter, where it can move and orb, what is called orb, which literally turns into a field of energy around it, but you can still have the body form, or you can turn it in like fully orb and turn yourself into complete light and move through gates and then come out somewhere else where you wanted to. So it is all a natural part of the structure, and it starts here. After you get the spirit body, you get the Rasha body that stands, basically, it's the interface between the spirit body and the light body in matter structure. Next one, please. Part of this Rasha body not only has its Alans, Kalans, Shalans, and Orons, and its fire chambers, and its prana seat at the center, it has density levels, and this becomes important in understanding the planet, or a body, a celestial body, because at the center you have the prana seed. That prana seed would represent the core gate that leads to the Taran and the spiritual body. And when we've said earlier, yesterday, that this system has entered a new status as of March 25th, 2007, because the prana seed at the center of our sun is named Sol, by the way, S-O-L, at the center of that sun, the prana seed has closed and compacted, which sets in motion what is called the Bardo process, which is the death process. It will begin to burn its fuel at its core more rapidly. Science doesn't realize it can do that because they don't understand what makes that fuel in the first place. All of these processes that we're seeing here of the dark matter templates, these are part of the processes of how stars are born in the first place, of how the stars that you can see out there, how their stellar bodies actually have the currents that allow for nuclear fission and fusion inside, that allow for generation of the elements that create the hydrogen fuel that is the fueling most stars, the hydrogen and the helium fuel. There's a whole hydrogen-helium conversion thing that happens in stars. All of it is connected to this. If a prana seed closes, what it means is the connection to the spirit body can no longer, where the core flows are, where the core lavas are, can no longer be made. So this will run out of steam on its own because it's not receiving full energy from the spirit body anymore. Now, the Rasha body won't go into a state of death. What it will do is when the prana seed closes, it will shut down the connection from the prana seed to what comes next, which is the outer light body structure. So it will separate the prana seed from that. It allows the prana seed itself and the Rasha part to open, so the Rasha body will live, but the outer light body structure is basically progressively cut free at that point from its dark matter template. And the dark matter template is what interfaces that body with its Adore side and the spiritual body structure. All right, so what happens with this is each of these rings will progressively, when a Bardo happens and the prana seed closes, it means that a system, a light body system and its matter structure have reached a level of biological corruption where the natural flows can no longer cycle. When that occurs, this closes, and each ring, one at a time, begins a separation cycle from its corresponding light body ring in the outer light body and where the matter body is. So there will be a set of what are called ring waves that, in the terms of the sun, will be given off. They'll go about once a year, starting in May of 2008, where they are called Bardo ring waves, where the first one will release. The prana seed has closed, And that means the link between the prana seed and the light body, matter body structure of the sun is now closed, which means the sun will not be able to have any more quantum fuel to keep its hydrogen processes going. All right, it will go for a while. It's still got quite a bit in there that's stored in the light body itself. But there's going to be a progressive releasing of the dark matter template from the light matter and physical matter body. So they will give off gamma ring waves. There will be some type of gamma bursts that come through from the core of the sun. At first, they may not be even strong enough to be noticed. I don't know. They don't know either. They don't know what it's going to look like. But they're not worried that we're going to get vaporized next May or anything. So you don't have to worry about that yet. But this is what a Bardo cycle is. So this is the role of this part of the template, part of the structure. Your Rasha body connects your manifest light body and matter body to the rest of the spirit body structure, which is connected to all of the Illumeridana and all of the time vectors and all of that. So it's a very big part of us. When we look at this in terms of a planetary level, or just as the Rasha body itself, each of the 15 Zalizek layers forms three of them at a time, form a set of matter densities where they form first the core 1, 2, and 3, form what are called the solid crystal core. 4, 5, and 6 form what's called the liquid core, which are the aquifers. All right, they refer to them as the aquifers. The 7, 8, and 9 Zalizek layers form what is referred to as the solids or the mantle. This here, what's considered span 9.5, because if you consider this 9, right, layer 9 and this layer 8, what's between 9 and 8? Well, 8 and 9, 8.5. So this is 9 and this is 10. This would be 9.5. So the spans, the crystal spans that run in between the rings have a 0.5 number that shows you what band they're in between. So anyway, with the mantle area, mantle goes from ring 7, 8, and 9. And 7, 8, and 9 at 9.5, there's what is called the crust, because this one is called the Ra level. Each one has a name, right? Each one of the 15 layers, and each one of the 15 rings, and each one of the 15 spans. They each have a core encryption that is a name sound. Right? So this one is the Ra-Ka, because 9 is Ka and 10 is Ra, so you have Ra-Ka at 9.5. And this is also, when we look at the planetary level, the crust. So we're looking at the D2 level of the planet, because the D2 level is the part we see as solid. Right? This would be our crust, where we're standing now. This would be our 3 levels of mantle. There are 3. There are the upper, the middle, and the lower. And there is what are called the liquid core aquifers, and there is the solid core crystal, which is where the metals, or the metals, are formed, actually, through the processes that are naturally inherent to the Rasha body. Now, this is the Rasha body structure. That is the dark matter template. It forms a structure called the base shield, the base shield of the light body, that is base shield of the matter body, that looks just like this. It's just bigger. So actually the Rasha bodies are a smaller set inside of a set that looks just like them, that are the light body structures. It also gives us the lineup of how our planets form, or how a star forms, or how our bodies themselves begin their formation process. So we have the mantle, then we have what is called the atmosphere, and then we have what is called the coronosphere. Planets are supposed to have coronospheres. Planets, living planets, aren't planets, they're suns, stars. Everything is supposed to have a living coronosphere of frequency around it, like the coronosphere we see on stars when we look up in the sky, or when we see pictures of our sun. There's a layer that is supposed to be a light. They are called the vapors. Each one of these represents one of the 5 elemental commands that have to do with creation of one of the 5 states of matter. All right, or actually one of the 5 core states of matter, from which 15 different states of matter emerge into the outer domains. You have at the core what are called the ethers, and they go with ring 1, 2, and 3. You have the aquifers are referred to as the flows, and they correspond with liquids. The mantle are referred to as the solid. It's referred to as crystal command. The ethers are referred to as cloud command, by the way. These are referred to, solids are referred to as crystal command. The gases are referred to as wind command, or air and wind command. And the vapors are referred to, or the fire command the coronosphere part is referred to as fire command, or the vapors. So we have the vapors, the gases, the solids, the liquids, and the crystal core, the frozen core, the ethers. All right, so ethers are actually frozen vapors, and vapors are on fire ethers, burning ethers. That's a better way to put that. So these give you the 5 base states of matter. This is where all this comes from. And each one of these lines actually creates a family of elements that can be plugged right into the periodic table. We won't have time in this particular one to cover all of that, but we will tomorrow go into a little bit about how these fire chambers form what become like hydrogen and oxygen and all of that. Because when you take that with its understanding of what it's connected to with the spirit body, and remember the word adjugate twin, you'll find that every element here has an adjugate twin over on the Adore side. And it is a process. The process of transfiguration occurs by the transmutation of elements in the body that happens when you allow an element here and its adjugate twin element to merge and bond, because they transmute into the next less dense next density up. Right? Can't talk because I'm getting tired, so I'm trying to get through a lot of material really fast. So anyway, this is all connected to how everything out here is manifest in the first place. The physics involved with this are huge. Can you see the next one, please? I want to see where I am next, because I think I can go from here to... Yeah, let me see what the next one is. Yes. These, by the way, I've mentioned the Navajo cell, okay, which is the elemental command cell that actually phases and perpetually generates the streams of sparks that, on the dark matter level, that come out to become the quarks, or the sparks that form the quarks that become the atoms of the different elements. And it's actually the core encryption patterns of this dark matter template that organize what sparks, what quarks will come together and form what types of elements when in the center of stars, when the birth into matter process is occurring. So that's why they call it elemental command, because it's literally where the encryption and the pattern for how elements are designed, and what makes hydrogen do this and not that, and what makes helium, and that kind of thing. And that all comes down to the proton number that's inside, the atomic number. So all of this is directly connected heavily into the physics. The first are the inner 5 cells of the core of the Navajo cell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We use these actually as a stand configuration when we're doing elemental command stands. Those are the 5 inner ones, and then there are more around them. Yeah, next one. Which gives you 12. And again, you're looking at that ruche shape, like the little necklaces that we have out there, right? You have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10, 11, 12. They're also the configurations of the 3 dimensions in 4 densities. So this is where the patterns for the light body and its 4 density levels, each with 3 dimensions, all of that are set. And it is the phasing of these cells that perpetually creates the spiraling crystal spiral currents that come out from the center and out in to form and feed the light body structures. And these are the living currents that are the outflow currents, and then they assist in creating backflow currents that go back to source, that allow the breathing all the way back through the spirit body and into first creation, and then back out again with backflow return. So it's an eternal life system of the ebb and flow back and forth through all these layers of anatomy, be it a cosmos or a person. Next one, please. All right. I just want to show this one down here, actually. This part, honey, please. We've worked with in other workshops, just all of the names. These have gotten messy. They've been photocopied so many times that you can't even read them anymore. But this lists the rings, the 15 Jaleesic rings of the Rasha body, and their names that go with them, which are sound tones that when you use them in certain ways will activate the Rasha body, and we've used them just for that purpose. And then there are these, which are called the span tones. They correspond to the Jaleesic bands in between, the Jaleesic radiation crystalline bands or spans that are in between the rings. So we have used span tones and ring tones to activate the specific layers of the Rasha bodies in order to bring the natural currents in from the spirit body through the Rasha body, start bringing them into the light body structure. So that was how we first started Rasha lay body training. It was about activating this entire Rasha structure in order to regenerate the light body and matter body structure. So, next one, please. Yes, it's the 15 states of matter are created by the 5 elemental commands. If the 5 elemental commands that we just saw there are ether, the ethers, the solids, the liquids, the gases, and the vapors, right? They combined, so those 5 create 4 more, those 4 create 3 more, those 3 create 2 more, and then they all create 1 more. Each one of these creates the actual base for a density level in the outer light body structure. Density 1 goes with this one, density 2, density 3, density 4, and density 5 would be represented by the first. So each density has 3 dimensions. So these would be the type of matter you would find in the 3 dimensions of density 1, and these would be considered plasmas. These are considered endoplasmas in density 2s. These are considered ectoplasmas in density 3s. They're considered hydroplasm in density 4, and they're considered thermoplasms in density 5. Next one, please. I'm going fast now because I need to get you through. I need you at least to see what a vertical map is. We will go through this more tomorrow. This is a regular atomic chart, periodic table of elements from physics, right? All of these elements, and so far, it's funny because they have some holes where they got numbers, but they don't have anybody in there because they didn't find these yet, I guess. I'm not even sure how many altogether they have discovered now. We've got 103 over here, got 110 there, but we don't have, 118, but we don't have 17, we don't have 15. I haven't had time to add them up or how many are there. These are the known and discovered elements out here. That, and the number corresponds to the proton number, or how many protons are in their nucleus. That's where they get the atomic number from. There is also the natural version of this chart, and what it looks like is, next one please, this. No, up, please. Oh, okay. Okay. Right, okay. I was going to run it up to that. It kind of starts down here. It shows you the elemental commands. It shows you these, I believe, are the spans. So say if you were on that ring 1.5 span, right, between ring 1, if you're in span 1.5, between ring 1 and ring 2. And if that was a circle, right? Well, imagine this was a circle. And there are 12, remember the 12 fire chambers in the Rasha body, right? So if this line was the span, and this was pulled into a circle, just that line, there would be 12 spots where the fire chambers cross that span. And they create the 12 different lines. This is the natural layout. And what element should be connected to what should be adjugate twins with what should be connected into, like what are the base energies that they're carrying, what they're supposed to look like, etc. There are mutations in the elemental base here because of the mutations and everything else. But this, they've just given this to us recently where they filled in all the things. This is actually showing what the natural structure of the periodic table should be. I haven't had a chance to put all the numbers in as far as neatly, but I've just showed to indicate where we are. They go up to 144. There are 144 natural elements that should be on the periodic table, and eventually they will be. But not all of them are supposed to look like they do right now, and eventually they're going to show us some of the mutations that are involved in what should have what proton number and what. There's all sorts of things that have happened on the elemental level because of the distortions in the planetary grid and in the planetary core. So this is just the beginning of showing us how all of this plugs into things that are in our science books. Next one, please. I'm not going to read all of those right now. We'll deal with those later. As if all that structure wasn't enough, like I'd said before early on, the 15 Jaleesic layer set of the Rasha body goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and makes what's called the 4-sheathed body. The 4-sheathed body is where we get the structures on the outer light body structure once the same structure is repeated with the outer light body frequencies of D1, D2, D3, and a density level. All right? That is the basic structure. And it's in understanding that structure that we can understand something like vertical maps. Next one, please. I'm going to get there. I'm going to. Okay. If we look at, this is just 2 catharogrids, each with their 15 Jaleesic layer structure. you start to see how those structures, remember the geodesic layers have specific proportions in relation to each other that were built on the structure of the 6 cracks, 6 pops, and the bing, bang, bong, and then the boom. All right? So there's specific layers, spaces in between them. When you put 2 sets of them together in the embedded mathematic pattern, it starts to show you interfaces between various layers. Try that 4 times and you can't even really see what any of the layers are doing, at least not on hand-on diagrams. But this is giving you the idea that this is just showing two layers. What this was going to become in a minute is I'm going to jump right into, because we're almost at the place where we would anyway, into the vertical maps. So you have an idea of what this structure, the Rasha structure, has to do with the structure of the planet and the structure of the planes, and what that has to do with ascension. So we see this Rasha body structure. If we can know that as the Rasha body forms within the 4 trimesters of the gestation cycle, which is the Taran cycle, the first tachyon cycle, culminates in birth of the dyad. The next thing, as the dyad births, so does the Eucatharista outer light body. And the base shield of the Eucatharista outer light body is for a set of 4 of these. So this creates the base shield of the light body structure, which is the base shield of the matter body structure. It's in the thing under the paper clip, honey. The ones I need most next. I think. Did you get them? I think I've gone far enough where I don't. Oh, I know where I am. I didn't do. I can do Lightborn, the other part. Anyway, when I talk about the dyad, myad, monad, all of those things, there is a set of diagrams that go with this, but I want to move you through this part first, actually. These are just showing you I don't need to go through all this bit right now. This is showing you that, I will do this part, how these are called the 7 suns, because when we have the light body base shield being born from the Rasha body template, we have the 4 sheaths of 15 geodesic layers of the Rasha body. And in between them form 3 more. In between each, if this was the first Rasha body, in between that and the next one, there's one that forms on the opposite spin, on the Adore side. So it gives you actually a set of 7 embedded spherical fields. And that is the base shield structure of the Eucatharista body. And it is formed from the base shield structure of the Rasha body. So we refer to them as the 7 suns of the base shield. Let's see, next one, please. I want to get to a certain point. And in those base shields, we have the phase sets that are referred to as the pillars of power of the Eucatharista body structure that we talked about from 2004 or 5 onward, and it's in the K23 manual. We've talked about pillar of power a bit in there, I think, and in other workshops. So this is showing where the information that we were given first, that's in the K23, 1, 2, and 3 stuff, fits directly in. We are still at the stage we have spirit body. Now we have our dark matter template Rasha body, and it just gave birth through the Big Bang, because that is the point of the Big Bang where this births out, and we have the Eucatharista body structure. And that is actually, Eucatharista body has an Akasha A body for the Itori side and Akasha A body for the Adore side. And within those structures, next are the structures that form the 4 Akasha A within the Akasha A, and then the 4 Akasha within each Akasha A, and then the 4 Eka Veka quadrants within each Akasha. That whole structure that we came to know as the Eka maps of the God World Gates forms as the Starborn cycle is unfolding. Of inner light is unfolding. So this is the process by which we get a spirit body, an inner and outer light body, and it's through the currents that form through the elemental command that we actually get a manifest body that manifests within the middle of that light body structure and is directly connected to its spirit body counterpart through the Rasha body and through into the spirit body, through the Illyrian chambers, the Hall of Records 8 cell, and the first 8 cells, which is the Akashic record and the Akashic record. There. And that is looking at what we've seen as the Eucatharista body, the top of the Eka maps of the God World Gates, that are aka known as the Stairway to Heaven when they were first introduced. Did you see that one? I don't need that one too. No, I wouldn't mind the Stairway to Heaven on there, though. I wouldn't mind the Stairway to Heaven on there. What do I have next? Oh, it's our back.
This is the tone stuff. This is
Yeah, that's that cycle. Somewhere I have the story. I have no. I just want to put that up quick. Yeah, there it is. It's the last one. Yeah. Yeah, I will probably cover the part of the light-born cycle, the inner light-born cycle that gets into the dyad, the myad, the monad, etc. I will probably deal with that in tomorrow's morning session with the other parts that have to do with the personal body. But just know that the Eucatharista body is born. This is the outer light body structure. When you pull it apart, first it starts with the Eucatharista body, and that then within the Eucatharista body it forms the four Akasha A bodies, and inside of the four Akasha A bodies, each one of those forms four Akasha bodies, and inside of each Akasha body forms an Ekaveka system. So when we talk about an Ekaveka system, wherever you see the Catharagrids, we call them the bones, and on the spheres that form on them are the balls. So we refer to them as the bones and the balls of creation. And the balls are actually the light cells. The bones are showing you the encryption. And these are also the patterns of stargates. And when we talk about stargates, we talk about sets of 12 would form one 15-dimensional universe. All right? That is a